And that is true.
I
and,
love that speech.
and that's what being a Christian is all about. No, but trust me, I preach a message on all 5 Rocky movies.
You really?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I went from Rocky 1 all the way to Rocky 5 at that time. Now there's more Rockies. But that is true. If that is true. Okay, there's another saying, you know, and I think it was a ranger that said it. I could be wrong.
An Army Ranger?
But an Army Ranger. But the gist of it is this: if your knight, his armor is shining, get yourself another knight because he's no good.
Do you want something that's rusted and worn out?
Once that's beat up, because he's been there and done that. And that's what being a Christian is all about. Because what this says is what the Bible says. You know, see, when how many of you guys know the story when Peter walked on water?
He asked God for his faith to show people that are watching that he does exist.
Nope.
Wasn't it that Jesus told him, "Come walk to me"?
Yep.
He said don't look away or something like that, right?
Yep. All of you are on the right track. But the thing what I want to tell you is this. You know, this is it's one of my favorite messages. This is in the middle of a storm. They're not in the city. They're in the middle of the ocean. So there's waves. There's waves crashing up. And then all of a sudden here comes Jesus strolling along the water. And they started freaking out because they thought he was a ghost. And he says, "No, it is I, Jesus." And Peter was always very brash, very gung-ho. So what does Peter do? Peter says, "Well, if it's you, tell me to go to you, and I'll go." And Jesus said, "Come on." So think about this for a second. There's a storm going on. It did not stop. There's this nut job in the boat that's not Jesus. And he says, "Well, if you are Jesus, I want to walk towards you, and I want to walk on water just like you are." And this is the great thing about him. He stepped out in faith. And he walked on the water. It doesn't say for how many steps, half a mile, 100 yards. It doesn't say. What it does say, that as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, like Victor said, he stayed over the water. Now, bear in mind, the storm didn't stop at this point. The storm is still raging on. All of a sudden, I can imagine Simon Peter, he's walking along and going over to Jesus. And all of a sudden, out of his peripheral vision, he sees a 30-foot wave coming towards him.
And he falls into the water.
No. Now, if you're walking on water and you see out of your peripheral vision a 30-foot wave coming towards you, what do you look? What do you do?
You look at the wave.
And that's what caused Peter to sink. See, as long as Peter kept his eyes on the prize, kept his eyes on Jesus, as long as we keep our eyes on who created heaven and earth, and who lives up in the hills, lives up in the heavens, the water we will get wet. We may get tossed around. We may even swallow some water. But I promise you that when we do like Simon Peter did, that he said, "Master, save me because I drown," Jesus was immediately by him. And that's what Psalm 121 says. When David writes this, David was going through one of the worst times in his life. He was being chased by King Saul. whom he had played for to calm him down, who he had been a general in his army. He was being chased at this time. Saul wanted his head, and David fell alone. And that's why at this time he writes, I will lift my eyes up to the hills, because it's from there that comes my help. My help comes from the Lord which made heaven and earth. Now, when we get to verse 3, it says, He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. He doesn't fall asleep like we do. He doesn't fall asleep on guard duty. He's always got our six. It doesn't matter where we are or how bad it gets. We can call on him. And he'll be right there. The seas roll over, but the rocks remain.
The darkness comes and goes, but you shall stand.
Yeah, that's good. But there's a choice to be made.
You give it.
No. See, the people that can be rocks are those that choose to walk like he walked. People that can face whatever, whenever, are those that trust him implicitly. And trusting him implicitly, and we're going to close with this, means even going beyond what you think. Case in point, the 3 Hebrew boys. Who knows that story? The story about Shadrach, Meshach, and the big Negro. Actually, his name wasn't the big Negro, it was Abednego. But the big Negro sounds better. Well, these are 3 Jewish boys. They were in Babylon. Israel had been invaded by Babylon, and they had taken captives. These 3 boys were part of a group of Jewish youngsters that were being trained to be rulers in the Babylon Empire. Well, the king gets this great idea to build a statue made out of gold, silver, copper, and at the end of his feet were made out of clay. And everybody, when the trumpet sounded, they had to bow down to it. Well, the 3 Jewish boys, they said, nope, we're not. We're not bowing down. So there's always a tattletale. They went and told the king. Now the king liked these boys. But he said, guys, if y'all don't bow down, I'm going to have to do something about it. And they said, we're not bound. He gave them chances, and they still would have bowed. So he got me really mad. And he said, bow down, or I will kill you right now. I will throw you into the fiery furnace. They said, nope, we're not bowing down. So he sends his soldiers and tells them to heat the fiery furnace 10 times more than it was. It was so hot that the ones that were making it hotter, they died. That's how hot it was. He again tells them, bow. They said no. And they said, we'll do you one better, king. Our God, the God that we serve, can deliver us from your fiery furnace. But even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow. They put their life on the line. God saved them from the fiery furnace. But the thing is not so much that God saved them from the fiery furnace.
But
The thing is that
they
they were all in. If he saves us, great. If he doesn't save us, that's great too.
get to see our Lord.
Because we're not going to bow. They were rocks. Even though at that particular moment, high tide came and covered them. They were thrown into the furnace. But the only thing that burned off of them were their bonds, the rope that was tying them. Their clothes didn't burn. They didn't even smell burnt. And the greatest thing that caused the king to call them out was that he threw 3 men in, but there were 4 men walking around. As he said, the 4th one looks like the son of God, the gods. So, doesn't matter how bad it gets, Pastor Ted says. We know how the story ends and we win. So when things get tough, we just hunker down and keep going. When stuff happens that we don't really understand, we don't have to understand everything, we just got to keep going. Because at one point, everything will come clear. And one day, when it's all said and done, the experience that you thought would kill you or would drown you and you stayed solid as a rock will be the experience that you can help somebody else with because they're going through the same exact thing. So guys, the choice is before you. You either are rock or you're sand. But it's a choice we all have to make. We all either stand for him or we don't. It's simple. So, with nothing else to add, I'm going to ask